One of the main reasons why people become instructional designers is because of the high earning potential and the great work-life balance. That's why in today's video, we're going to explore the top 3 ways that you can make money and achieve financial freedom as an instructional designer. So my name is Devlin Peck, and this field has changed my life financially in ways I could never have imagined when I was coming into it, and I've seen it do the same for many other people who have transitioned into instructional design. So that's why we're going to explore the main ways that I've been seeing people make a living, as well as the main ways I've been making a living in this space. The first couple you've probably heard of before or thought about, but the last one isn't talked about very much, and there is a massive opportunity there. So stick with me till the end and let me know what you think. So first up, we have the full-time corporate instructional designer. This has the highest earning potential out of the full-time options. A lot of people with a strong portfolio breaking into the corporate ID space can earn around 85 grand per year in the USA, but it's also not unheard of to land a 6-figure offer right out the gate, especially after you have some experience in the corporate space. So great earning potential comparatively to other, full-time options out there. It's the best option if you want consistency and stability. So consistency for sure. You know exactly what your paycheck is going to be. It's very predictable and you can plan around that. That is the benefit of full-time work. I put stability in quotes because you do depend on one employer if you are a full-time employee. If you get laid off, there goes your entire paycheck. Whereas with some of these other options, if you lose one client, you still have other clients and you still have cash flow coming in. So stability is debatable there, but it definitely does give you consistency. And again, higher earning potential than working in higher education or public education, for example. Another big draw of this is that you will generally have 40-hour or less work weeks. There are plenty of remote opportunities. There are generally good benefits and a pretty relaxed work environment. So it's not a super stressful job compared to some other options out there. And again, this is generally speaking, most IDs I've spoken to and worked with, they're not super stressed. There may be little stresses like getting a hold of a subject matter expert or meeting a deadline that may come up, but generally pretty relaxed. And once 5 o'clock rolls around, you don't have to think about work anymore and you're off the clock. There are exceptions to this. Some people work fewer than that. Sometimes in really fast-paced environments, people may need to work, later into the night, but that is definitely not common. This is the least flexible and the lowest earning potential of the options we'll explore because most of the full-time options do require you to be on the clock from 9 to 5, for example. It's not super flexible on the hours you work. Some people have roles like that, and that's amazing. But generally, you do need to work specific hours and be available during those hours. And then there is a cap, there is a limit to how much these corporations will pay a corporate instructional designer. So there is a much lower ceiling than these other options we'll explore. But if you are interested in the corporate route, last week I published the updated full guide to becoming an instructional designer. So definitely check that out. That outlines all the steps you need to take for a really strong corporate role. Next up, we have freelancing. And a lot of people have been interested in this. It does have great flexibility. So this is where you do get to set your hours, you get to set your terms. You will definitely have the freedom to work from home. And you have the potential to earn multiple 6 figures per year. So this is way more flexible than full-time. It does come with some downsides, of course, which we'll get into. But yeah, out of school, my first year in business, I earned almost 200 grand my first year doing this. And I don't say that to brag. I know talking about money is a touchy subject. I'm pretty transparent with it on this channel, and I know that's not for everyone, but I share these numbers to show you what's possible because that helped me a lot on my journey hearing content creators and people who are further along be transparent about their earnings. That helped me really get inspired and motivated and know this is possible if I put in the effort. So that's why I talk about numbers. It's not to brag, just to show this is possible. You can achieve something like that as well. Again, you get to choose your projects. That's a big draw to freelancing for some people. Like if you want to specialize in like AR and VR, for example, you can highlight that kind of work on your portfolio and you can start securing projects like that. So Or for example, if you're meeting with a potential client and they're showing some red flags or don't seem great to work with, you can turn that away. You have that freedom. Whereas internally, if you get paired up with an internal client, it may be expected you're going to do that and you're going to like it because you're getting a paycheck every week. So a lot more flexibility with freelancing, which is great. Same thing with when you take calls, when you take meetings, and when you even do the work. If you want to do your work at, start working at 8 p.m. at night, you can do that as a freelancer. Not sure, you may not want to, but you have that option. The biggest downside, of course, with freelancing is the inconsistency and the effort required to get things going. Like, it can be scary in the beginning. It was scary for me, and I was a college student without a ton of financial obligations, no kids to worry about. But it was scary for me getting things off the ground, wondering, am I going to have work 2 months from now once I finish up this project? Or when is my next client going to come through the door? So that can be scary. That can be especially scary if you do have a family to support and you need health insurance and all of that good stuff if you're in the United States. So that is the downside, but of course, greater risk, greater reward is the idea here. And you don't just work in your business. Like, you're not just going to be doing the instructional design and e-learning development work as a freelancer. You also need to work on your business. So generally 50-50 is how that's going to look. 50% you're actually doing the work. The other 50% you might be working on creating content to build your brand or updating your website or networking with potential clients. Like, you need, and then we're dealing with taxes and invoicing and bookkeeping and all of that stuff. So it's a learning curve. Like, the first year of freelancing is generally the most difficult. It definitely was for me, and learning how to manage clients and manage projects and all of that stuff. But again, very rewarding and very high, financial reward as well. Like, in the beginning, I was working for $45-50 an hour, but by the end, when I was still doing freelancing, I was making over $1,000 an hour on some fixed price projects if I were to calculate how many hours I was actually spending on those. So ton of opportunity there. It just might take a little while to get things up and running, and it may feel uncomfy along the way because of that inconsistency. The other potential downside here is that as a freelancer, you serve the client, not the end user or your learners. And this distinction took me a while to really understand, because when I learned about the field and I learned how to do good instructional design work, it was all about serving the learner and the end user and making sure that they're improving their skills and knowledge so that they can produce results for the business. But then when you're a freelancer, you realize your job isn't to make them happy. Your job is kind of to make the client happy, because they're the one who's cutting the check. They're the one who kind of has the final say on things. And that would be really frustrating and difficult for me sometimes when we weren't following best practices. And then we have to kind of comply with client requests that aren't in line with best practices, and they aren't really interested in learning otherwise. So that can be really tricky and it can be really frustrating, but you'll definitely be earning a good living along the way, so to speak. And some people thrive on that, on serving the client. But again, if you're really concerned about the end user, then this next option may be more appealing to you. But if you're interested in freelancing, I had started building up a playlist in the past when I was freelancing. I have a couple of freelancers on my team right now who are doing very, very well. So if you want more freelancing content, drop a comment letting me know. It doesn't have to be all or nothing where you're like, I'm going to be a full-time freelancer and I'm going to quit my full-time job. There are a lot of people who start freelancing while working their full-time job. They might do that for 1 year, 2 year, 5 years before deciding, okay, I'm going to see if I can go out on this on my own. But in the meantime, they just work evenings or weekends, and they supplement their income very well with 1 or 2 freelance projects here and there. So yeah, let me know if you're interested in more freelancing content, because we can definitely create freelancing content if that's what you want to see. Now, the third option, and this is the one I'm excited about, is course selling. And instructional designers don't talk about this very much, but there is huge opportunity here. So the idea of this approach is to help people directly via free and paid content. So instead of freelancing where you're working with a client to reach the end users, with the course selling approach, you answer directly to your end users. So that's a really cool part about this approach. You are serving people directly. And the other main draw of this approach is that it has the maximum flexibility, scalability, earning potential, and impact out of all of these options we're exploring. So, for example, this is the business I've been running for the past couple of years now. I create a ton of free content, and then I have some paid options for people who want to go deeper, and it's mainly focused on people who want to become instructional designers or build their instructional design skills. So for me, helping people become instructional designers and double their salaries or get way better work-life balance so they can spend more time with their families or for themselves, that for me is way more rewarding than designing some corporate e-learning courses about like HR principles or some other principles or practices that may be very important, but that it feels like any instructional designer could really do. So for me, I'm way more passionate about this, and I feel like I'm making a way bigger impact seeing how it's changing people's lives. I didn't really get that as a freelancer. And the cool thing, in addition to helping more people and seeing that bigger impact that I'm making, it is way more financially rewarding. This has grown into a 7-figure business, which blows my mind. I can't believe I'm saying that this year. But again, I'm not saying that to brag, but just to show you this is what's possible with this course selling approach. We tripled the revenue this year compared to last year, and the potential to continue growing seems it seems very, very far ahead. Like it doesn't seem like we're reaching a ceiling anytime soon. So there isn't much of a ceiling with this approach. It is very scalable, which again is the best part about it. And it will give you a lot more freedom in your life. So of course, that may sound really great. It's going to take some work. But the cool part about this is that a lot of instructional designers already have the skills that are required for a business like this. The main idea here is you need to know your audience, you need to know what they're looking for, and you need to help them learn. So you need to close those knowledge and skill gaps so that they can make changes in their lives. Again, for me, that's on how to become an instructional designer. But if you have something that you're more passionate about, if you have a transformation you want to help people achieve, that you can focus on that. You can focus on what you're most passionate about helping people achieve. So IDs already know how to do that. You're probably doing that every day. You're helping people learn. You're talking to your audience. You're setting goals. That's what it takes to thrive in a course selling business like this. So that's why I'm surprised when I see that there aren't a lot of instructional designers who are applying their skills to build a business like this. In my opinion, gives you way more freedom and space than a freelancing business. But again, it can take a little bit longer to start up. So the cool thing here, again, you serve and answer to your customers directly. You're free to make the impact that you want to make. You won't have any clients telling you, oh, hey, let's change the color of that to red, or like, let's make all these like frivolous changes that won't really have an impact based on learning science. Instead, you're surveying and talking to your audience directly. You have that direct line of communication, which for me made a very big difference in how rewarding the work was that I was doing. So again, it does take longer to get started with this kind of approach, but my favorite part about it is that the effects compound. It's much more rewarding personally and financially. For example, the videos, I started my YouTube channel a couple of years ago now in 2020. Some of the videos that I made in 2020 are some of my best performing videos now over 2 years later. So you can imagine they weren't doing very much for me a month after I published them in 2020. But if you're publishing a video or piece of content every single week, over time, that's going to keep bringing people to you. So 5 more years of me creating content, then I have 7 years of content that's going to be bringing people to me and helping educate and help people at scale. So I'm not going to dive too deep into it here, but I just want to give you an idea of how that compound effect works. And I would say would generally take around a year or so to get a nice profitable business up and running that could replace your other forms of income. But we will see. And we will see because I'm about to create a 10-part playlist or so sharing everything I've learned over the past couple of years about course selling for free. So I've been excited about this content for a while now. Some of you have been reaching out to me, like asking me about how I built this business. And I've been telling everyone, wait until January, just wait until the beginning of next year. I'm going to post an entire playlist on it. The time has come. And I am really excited, so I'm going to share some stuff I haven't shared anywhere else before in this playlist. The first video is coming next week, so feel free to subscribe, especially if you're interested in learning more about how to build a business like this. Again, I'm giving it away all for free here on YouTube. So subscribe if you want to see that. If you're interested in one of the other approaches to earning a good living as an instructional designer, check out the links in the description. I'll organize it quite well based on whether you want to become a corporate ID, freelance, or again, if you want to build a course selling business or you're more interested in that, then feel free to subscribe. So thanks for making it to the end of this video, and I will see you in the next one.